Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, Mickey 17. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I never have to deal with a duplicate version of myself. The world can only handle one. This movie is directed by Bong Joon-ho, whose most notable film is Parasite. The synopsis is as follows. A disposable employee is sent on a human expedition to colonize the ice world Niflheim. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated with most of his memories intact. Instead of talking about the 6 things that make a movie great, I'm just going to share my spoiler-free thoughts on the film. You have a really interesting concept of a man who decides to become a disposable employee, where he uses himself for science to try out these different situations to see if they would survive or if the creatures are dangerous, and then if he dies, a new version of him is printed out. And this comes from a machine that's able to download and store his old memories and use some of his molecules to print out a new version of himself. Really interesting concept, and there's a lot of directions you could have gone with that. But unfortunately, it seemed that this movie wanted to send a different message. And so the whole plot line of Mickey becoming what's called a double, where everyone thought that a version of him died, so they printed off another version, and it turns out that there now are 2 Mickeys, took a huge back seat to the real message that this movie wanted to send. This movie used its runtime to shove social commentary down its audience's throat. The director's hatred for a particular political candidate was palpable throughout the entire film, and unfortunately it distracted from every single other interesting thing about this movie. It didn't help that this movie had about 6 subplots going on at once that just distracted from each other and kind of was this incoherent mess, because somewhere in here there was a really interesting and unique story to tell, but that's not the story that the director wanted to show. There are countless scenes of worthless and annoying monologuing, so much so that Robert Pattinson seems to take a back seat in his own movie. In fact, a lot of the scenes that Robert Pattinson was in felt like they could have been in a different movie, one that wasn't as focused on having an agenda. And that feeling led to a much bigger disconnected feeling throughout the entire film. And the other unfortunate part about this movie is that 95% of it is not even funny. It's one thing if you demonize half of your audience, and it's another thing if you convince your audience that this is going to be a comedy sci-fi movie, and instead it's a socio-political rant that's about as subtle as a gunshot. And so at the end of the day, it felt like this movie could not get out of its own way for the life of it. Regardless of which side of the aisle that you're on, even if politically you're able to look past what this movie is insinuating, objectively, the film is not that good. The best parts about this movie are the CGI and Robert Pattinson. And let me tell you, the best part of the movie was Robert Pattinson interacting with himself. Even though initially you kind of have to get over the annoying sound of his voice, Robert Pattinson is easily the most talented, funny, and interesting part of the movie. Everything else objectively about this film is pretty trash. The acting is horrific. The dialogue between characters is lazy and uninteresting. The comedy lasts for all of 5 minutes. The plethora of subplots took away from the overall film. And all of the creative and interesting things that this movie could have done, it simply chose not to do. All to make way for the socio-political messaging it was trying to push. And that's the biggest disappointment of all. The fact that you would rather have characters monologue and rant and rave about their political positions and beliefs instead of doing something extremely creative with this original idea that you have before you is just a very interesting choice to me. And it's one that I pretty easily would have decided against. But you do you, Bong. And so what we ended up getting was kind of a dull, boring, unfunny fart of a movie that really could have been something better. And another thing I'll throw on there is that we nearly got a reiteration of the Challenger scene. Honestly, it kind of pisses me off that that's what this movie decided to focus on instead of all the other things that were there that they very easily could have done. And because of that, I have to give Mickey 17 a 2 out of 10. I think that if you enjoy social commentary, hate escapism, hate creative dialogue, and love watching movies that could be creative but absolutely waste all of their potential on something, then you might enjoy Mickey 17 in theaters. Outside of that, I'd say Mickey 17 is a hard pass. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Mickey 17, let me know how you felt about that in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.